Toronto is a city on the come-up, with names such as Drizzy Drake and its notorious former mayor, the late Rob Ford. The city has shot itself to the global stage. It is also very multicultural and attracts immigrants from all around the world. Toronto is also a city of neighborhoods, 140 neighborhoods to be exact, each with its own unique boundary. In fact, the Toronto we will be talking about today is Toronto proper, the main city itself, not the broader GTA or Greater Toronto area, and the more outer suburbs, which also have some affluent neighborhoods of their own. This is the Toronto which stretches from Lake Ontario in the south to Steeles Avenue in the north and Highway 427 in the west to the Rouge River in the east. What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to another Tahmid Talks video. If you are new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you do not miss out on any great content. If you grew up in a typical Toronto neighborhood with lots of immigrants and mostly lower or middle income families, then chances are good that you have never heard or learned much about these neighborhoods that we'll be discussing today. Most of them sit in the northern, western inner burbs of the city. Many of them have small populations, low population density, and are quite well guarded, in some cases gated, in other cases by green spaces such as forests and ravines. No neighborhood, sadly, from the East End or the downtown core made the list. The first neighborhood on our list of the richest is on the west side. It's called Kingsway South. By Toronto standards, this is a tiny neighborhood in some respects, from the population to the land size. I mean, it's barely only 10,000 people. Most people here live in actual houses, meaning detached dwellings, as you can see by the amount of ground-related housing stock, much higher than the city average. The amount of apartment living as well as unaffordable and inadequate housing status is half that of the general city. People here most likely own their own homes and likely have generational wealth and the prevalence of old money. In fact, only 19% around here are renters compared to 47%, almost half of the people in the city of Toronto. As you can see from these few real estate listings in and around the hood, the houses here that people own can be rather luxurious and are definitely not cheap even by Toronto standards. Both the median family and household incomes are massive in this neighborhood, more than double the city average, with the families who are considered in the middle, meaning the median in this neighborhood, bringing home around 200 grand every year. As you will see, the poverty rates in this neighborhood compared to the city are minuscule, and people have significant other sources of income than just work. Probably investments such as real estate, businesses, and such. The people in this neighborhood tend to be quite highly educated, with around 3/4 having a bachelor degrees or more. The labor force statistic shows that they're not too different from the city averages when it comes to amount of people in the labor market and out as well, with around half the people working full-time right now. The composition and type of households aren't remarkably different from other parts of the city neither, with perhaps the only exception being there are much less single mothers in this particular neighborhood than on average across the city. Here is a more detailed income range breakdown of the neighborhood and a look at where that money comes from as well. As you can see, 1 in 4 people here have income from other sources than just a typical job. Especially take a look at how much higher the average investment income in this hood is compared to the city of Toronto average. It's many folds. Another way to look at income is by deciles, breaking down people as high, middle, low earners, and it becomes clear that most people in this neighborhood are extremely high earners, and they place in the top 10%, the top decile of earners in the city. So where did most of these people come from in Kingsway South? Well, a lot of them were born in Canada but can trace their roots to somewhere in Europe. There are not many first-generation immigrants or even children of immigrants present in this neighborhood yet. In fact, Even among the immigrants, they trace their origins to places such as the United Kingdom and the United States, unlike other parts of Toronto where South Asia and Southeast Asia are the leading regions of immigrants. Interestingly, most of the people living here claim to have ancestors from parts of Europe, namely the United Kingdom, Ireland, Scotland, Italy, Germany, France, and Poland, to name a few. Otherwise, there is a tiny Chinese, Russian, and East Indian from the subcontinent population that is also living here, but most of the residents remain vastly white, particularly from the United Kingdom and surroundings. The next very rich Toronto neighborhood we'll be discussing is a bit more notorious than the Kingsway. It's Rosedale Moore Park. Similar to Kingsway, this is primarily a residential enclave where the moneyed have chose to settle. Instead of being in the west of the city, this place is slightly north from the hustle and bustle of downtown Toronto. Not too far actually from some of the poorest hoods in Toronto, namely St. Jamestown North. Rosedale Moore Park hosts around 20,000 people, about the same as St. Jamestown North, yet has 1/10 of the population density. Now we should note that the Rosedale side is much wealthier than the Moore Park side, but the city decided to combine these two different worlds together. In fact, it's the Rosedale side that has the bulk of the detached ground level housing that you see in the form of the data, and most of them are actually very fancy mansions, as you will notice looking at the picture of some of the real estate available out there. Whereas on the Moore Park side of the neighborhood, you have more renters and high-rise apartment dwellers than the average city of Toronto hood actually. But then when we take a look at the median income data, we come to see that the median family income in this neighborhood is more than double the city average at almost $180,000 annually. And the median household earns around $150,000 annually, and the poverty rates are at half that of the Toronto average. The average person in this neighborhood is likely to have an university degree or have higher levels of formal education than the average Toronto neighborhood. The detailed income breakdown shows us that there is no shortage of high-income earners in Rosedale Moore Park, with close to 1/3 of people bringing in money from other sources besides their jobs, be it real estate, stocks, or businesses. Note how the average investment income here is around 5 times that of the city average. As we look at the income decile breakdown, what really makes people rich, or at least gives us an idea of how rich they are, we see that there is both a high earner percentage around here, with most of that coming from investment activities. Probably a lot of wealthy people live around here, especially Rosedale, with fair amounts of generational wealth. The neighborhood has significantly less first-generation immigrants than other part of the city, with most people here being born in Canada and around 1/4 being the second-generation children of immigrants. Similar to Kingsway, the top source of immigrants is again the USA and the UK. And again, most people in the neighborhood are from Europe and trace their origins there, with the English, Irish, Scots, Germans, and Poles being the top group once again. Outside of Europe, once again, it's the same pattern, with some Chinese people and East Indian people from the subcontinent starting to settle in this very affluent neighborhood. The third neighborhood on our list is actually very close to Rosedale and Moore Park in distance, with a little over 15,000 people living in Leaside, Bennington. Around here, almost everyone lives in a house and owns it as well, and the median family income is more than double the city average at close to $200,000 annual. The poverty rate, as you would expect, are relatively low at 1/3 of the city averages. The formal education levels here are also higher than the city average, with a fair amount of university degree holders. The family composition and sizes are similar to most neighborhoods in Toronto, with the only exception being the large number of families with children living here, meaning that there are a fair number of families around. While Leaside Bennington is a super rich neighborhood, people here mostly rely on professional jobs for most of their earnings and income, and there is a fair bit of high income earners as you would expect. Around half of the people in this hood are in the top decile of income earners in the entire city, rather similar to the other two rich neighborhoods we have looked at so far. Also similar is the low number of immigrants relative to other part of the cities, with most people here being in Canada for multiple 3 or more generations in more cases than not. The top place for immigrants to originate from in this neighborhood are again the United States and United Kingdom, with China taking the 3rd spot in this one. Very similar to the other neighborhoods, 8 of 10 people residing here are from or trace their origins to somewhere in Europe. So once again, a very white neighborhood with your typical suspects for ethno-national origins being prevalent here, the English, Scots, Germans, French, and the Irish as well, with the only non-Europe based group paying the notable numbers of Chinese and East Indians once again. So by now you have probably started to notice patterns in these rich Toronto neighborhoods. Last but not least on our list is Bedford Park, Northtown, slightly northwest from the last two neighborhoods we looked at. At around 25,000 people living here, and like most neighborhoods we have looked at so far, the population density here is very low by Toronto standards, although there is a fair amount, well, at least more than the last few neighborhoods living here in Bedford Park and Northtown. Around 3/4 of the people here live in ground level housing of some sort, with the other 25% or so in high or low rise accommodations. Once again, a very high number, about 7 out of 10 people own their homes in this neighborhood, and more than half reside in detached houses. The income required for Toronto housing is not cheap by any measures, and the people here definitely have the income to maintain their lifestyles, earning twice as much as the city average when it comes to both median household and median family incomes, both well into the 6 figures range. The labor market participation rates are similar to the rest of the city, with formal education being a bit higher around here than the average neighborhood. More than half of the people residing in this neighborhood are families with children, with some of the family sizes actually being larger than average compared to the rest of the city. A significant chunk of the neighborhood are high income earners, and a bit less than 30% get income from some form of investments, as well as earning about 3 times more in that income, the investment income, than people in other parts of Toronto that have that. A majority of families living in Bedford Park and Northtown are high income earners, with almost half in the top decile of earners in the whole city. Once again, most, meaning 7 out of 10 people living here were born in Canada, and the number of immigrants is lower than the city average. However, there are more second generation children of immigrants here, slightly so higher than the average for Toronto. But a large chunk here remain, like the other neighborhoods, 3rd generation or more, meaning they have been in Canada for some time. Here, actually, most of the immigrants are from the Philippines, with the United States and UK following, with a strong Chinese presence once again prevalent. Interestingly, the top claimed ethnic origin in this hood is Canadian, followed by, once again, your typical Europe suspects such as Polish, English, Russian, Scottish, Irish, and then we have Jewish and Filipino in the mix. Compared to the other rich neighborhoods per se, this has to be the most diverse. However, as you can see from the world regions map, once again, 7 out of 10 people here still trace their origins to some part of Europe, with East and South Asia, Southeast Asia being the next closest group at far away with 15%, composed mainly of the Chinese and the Filipino. If you watched this video the whole way through, I'd like to thank you, a heartfelt thank you for supporting Tahmid Talks, for keeping up to date and staying tuned with the content. To support more content like this, as always, hit the thumbs up, leave a comment, and hit that subscribe button. I'll catch you in the next video.